Hey guys, it's Aaron. I wanted to answer a question today. This came up, it's actually come up a couple different times. People are asking about exporting from SketchUp versus exporting from LayOut. I don't want to necessarily get into the finer points of exporting. We've done videos on exporting before. We've done stuff exporting for CNC, exporting DXFs from SketchUp. Plenty of stuff on exporting or printing out from LayOut. So what I wanted to look at more, focus in on, was when to use which program for exporting. Because it really depends on why you're exporting, what you want to get out of what you're spitting out of the software. So let's dive in and take a look at when to use SketchUp or when to use LayOut for your exported files. Okay, so I have here a SketchUp file, and I have a couple different things in the SketchUp file that I may want to export. So we're going to start with the simplest. Maybe this is like a little a frame for something. It's a little frame shape I have made out of like 2x4s or something like that. And all I want to do is get this and, not necessarily get this to scale, but a reference image and get this out so I can go maybe take this out to my garage and cut these pieces out, or I don't know. Something simple where I just want a reference image. That's the first piece I'm looking at. So if that's the case with this right here, to export this, this is something I would just do from SketchUp. I have access to LayOut. I've had it for years and years and years, but there's still plenty of times where I take a simple reference image like this and just print it right from SketchUp. So here's a couple things to note. One thing is wherever possible, I try to get it flat to the screen. So one thing I'll do is click on a surface and hit Align View. That's going to assure that I'm looking straight down. Because I drew this in 2D, it's flat. It's not going to matter too much if I switch between parallel projection and perspective. The real big difference here is whether or not that axis is off at an angle or not. One thing I do try to do when I export, though, is go to my styles and edit my styles and change my background to a white color. This is just to be frugal. This is just saving on ink so it doesn't flood my entire background with that on a printout with that gray color. Once I've got that set up, then all it takes to export is File, Export, and I'm going to do a 2D graphic. And here I'm just going to export this as like a PNG or something like that. And then boom, spit that out. There's options in here, but again, like I said, not going to mess with this too much. I'm just going to say take my screen as it is, export it as a PNG, and then I can print that out or take it out on my phone or something like that and have that image. So that's the most simple way to export, and that's something I would do straight from SketchUp. The other thing is take that just a little bit further. That is exporting a file for machining. So this is going to go to a CNC or something like that. I just created this little shape. What you'd want to do is put it in a group like this, go to File, Export, and this is a little confusing. It's 2D geometry, and I want to send this to a CNC. I'm going to export 3D model and export it as a DXF file. That, by exporting as 3D, we did a whole video on this, is going to export these curves as true curves rather than segmented lines. But that's what I would do to export for CNC. I would do it directly here from SketchUp using a DXF file, 3D export. So that is probably the other 2D thing that I would export. That would be something like I said, a screenshot PNG or data to go to CAD/CAM software for CNC. The other thing, the most frequent thing you're going to export from SketchUp directly is 3D models. So I have this little 3D model from Rodrigo Cerci. If I wanted to take this and export it for, say, 3D printing, or I want to take this out into some other program where I want to animate it or paint on it or something like that, I would put it in a group first like this, and then File, Export, 3D Model, and in here I would put it out as an STL or an OBJ or a DXF, whatever file type I'm going to need to actually use it once it comes out. SketchUp is, a lot of people use it alongside things like 3D printing or creating assets for animation. SketchUp itself doesn't do a lot of that work. That's all done by creating the geometry in SketchUp and then exporting it to other programs, and this is how you do it. This would always be coming out of SketchUp. 3D models want to go out, they go out of SketchUp. You would not take a model into LayOut and then try to export it for 3D. Speaking of where we do go to LayOut, I have a house here. So people have a lot of times asked about how do I get this house to scale to print directly from SketchUp? Just totally be straightforward. SketchUp is not made for that. It doesn't have the tools for that. There's tricks you can play with setting the screen size to an exact size and then exporting an image and that sort of stuff. And I honestly, I've seen descriptions of how that works. I've never gone through and done it myself. Because it's not the tool for it. SketchUp is made to help you as easily as possible create the 3D model. When it comes time to creating a scaled drawing, that's what LayOut's for. So if I wanted to, the only thing I could think of, like working on a house like this, that I would want to export was maybe I have a question on something, like I come in here and I'm like, this dimension's not right. So maybe I want to come in here and, put in a tag like this or something and say, question. I could do something like that and then just say, now export that as a PNG that I can send over to somebody because I have that question. I don't know. The only time I would really export anything that needs plans would be something like that. Clarification, RFI kind of situation where I could use SketchUp as it is, just grab a picture out of it, and that's it. I would not try to create plans, which takes us to LayOut. Let's take a look at LayOut. So obviously, the spot I'm going to use LayOut primarily is this, creating scaled drawings. That is a huge piece. You can export 2D imagery from SketchUp. You could throw it on a page, but getting it scaled is difficult. So in LayOut, of course, it's real easy. I click on this, come over here. It has ortho, preserve scale turned on, and it's put to 1/4 inch equals a foot. So when I export this, I don't have to do any work to scale the model differently or anything like that. I just know that when I hit it, I could measure it. 1/4 inch is going to be equal to a foot. Done. That's exactly what LayOut does. At that point, I go to File, Export, and I could export this as a PDF, or I could export it as a DWG. I could even export it as a PNG or JPEG. Obviously, there's a lack of precision once I get into things like converting this all into pixels. If I export it as a PNG, or I'm sorry, if I export it as a PDF or DWG, DWG I would want to use if I'm going to some other program. So if I have my title blocks or setup, that sort of thing, in some other CAD program that I want to use to put this image into, I would export DWG or DXF. PDF would be like my final, I'm just going to print this or send digital documents to someone, just export this as a PDF as it shows. Now there is, because of that DWG DXF export option, there we go, I do have the option of taking geometry and exporting it. So this could potentially go to CAD/CAM software for CNC or go some other place. I could actually put things on a page here and export it that way. If I do that, if I choose to do it here instead of SketchUp, you do want to be conscious of these options. Specifically, right here, do I want to export paper size or do I want to export model size? That's what this bottom question asks right here. Export for SketchUp exports all entities to model space at current paper size. So you want to be conscious of that when you export. You should always look at options when you export, but specifically, if I want to take this geometry and export it as a DXF for use elsewhere, I want to be sure to set my presets correctly so that I get out the file I'm looking for and not some weird jumble of lines at a scale that is going to be unusable. So that was fairly quick run through, but like I said, the question was, when do I export from SketchUp versus LayOut? And I hope that covered it. I know there's other use cases, and there's lots of other use cases, but most of them are pretty straightforward, and you just export from SketchUp or you just export from LayOut. Those are the things that I could think of where people might cross over and want to do one versus the other. You can, of course, use LayOut for all of your 2D outputs. So I've mentioned a couple ways to pull a file out of SketchUp. You can go to LayOut with a quick sketch and export it from there. No problem. That's perfectly fine. But those are the main file type or export options that I could see, and those are my thoughts on which ones you use in SketchUp and which ones you would use for LayOut. If you like that, go ahead and click like down below, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. We create several videos a week around here, and you'll be notified of each and every one if you subscribe. Most importantly though, please leave us a comment down below. Like I said, this video was actually requested a couple different times in YouTube comments specifically. We like making these videos a lot, but we like them even more when they're showing something you want to see. Thank you.